What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be reviewing the hottest runners of the past week and reviewing some plays that I believe have the potential based on their daily chart of having some nice spikes in the next few weeks and few months. So hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. If you didn't know, every single day I give away $25 and it goes to a random commenter from the previous video lesson. So yesterday's lesson, I made $3,000 trading yesterday on 7 different trades, mostly DXR, and that was my biggest trading day ever. So I really recommend that you watch that video lesson because there's a lot of great lessons in there. So the winner of the $25 is Bars. It says, great job. At which time scale are you actually looking, i.e. 1 minute, 5 minute, or even more? With the pattern that I'm using now, the break of the pullback, it seems like the most profitable patterns arise on the 5 minute time frame. However, what I usually do is use a mix of the 5 minute and 1 minute. So what I mean by that is I'm looking at the overall trend on the 5 minute and then using the 1 minute and basing my entries and exits based on the 1 minute candlesticks. But you definitely have to use the 1 minute, 5 minute, and especially the daily chart, just to look at the overall chart patterns and plays that stock has. So make sure you send me a YouTube message with your PayPal email address and I'll send over that $25 to you as soon as I get your information. So the stocks that I want to review today, I have a pretty big list of them right here. So you can pause this video, write these down if you want. The ones that have the asterisk next to them mean that they have a higher chance of moving in the near future based on their chart patterns. So we're going to go over those ones first. So what I want to do first is look at AMTX because this was the main mover today. It moved over 150%. And if you've been watching the market in this past few weeks, all these moves have been happening based on the same type of chart pattern, and it is on the daily chart, and it is just a multi-day breakout. So you can see on AMTX, the stock was pretty much dead, down under $1, and then it had a very big spike up to $1.50 just about, pulled back, it consolidated, and then it had another big green day. It broke out of that previous high and squeezed all the way up. If we look at DXR, this is the same exact thing, popped up, pulled back, broke out. INNT a few weeks ago, popped up, pulled back, multi-day breakout. RKDA even, same exact thing, popped up right here even, popped up, pulled back, broke through, and then just kept on squeezing even higher. And the list goes on and on and on. What else was there? The KBSF. Actually, this chart doesn't work on the daily chart for some reason. And you get the picture. So a bunch of these plays have the same thing in common. They have one, they all have low floats. Two, they have a nice daily chart that is essentially a U-shaped breakout. And it has a previous history of having big runs. So having those main things is really the key factor in trading these huge plays that you can really grow your account exponentially on if you get in at the right time and hold and swing trade it, which I'm going to start doing because now my account is bigger and I'm able to use a tiny bit of money and put it as swing trades. So ones that we see in the near future happening, I believe, would be like YECO. You can see that YECO has a previous history of running up to $9. It has hard resistance at $9. And then essentially we need a breakout over this previous high at 378. And then it can break over the $5 mark and squeeze even higher. So YECO is one to watch in the near future. DRIO, same exact thing. This has a previous history of running. However, this one is a tiny bit of a different chart pattern, but I do believe that it definitely has some weight back to it. You can see back on 2015 in December had this massive spike up over $10, and what I essentially did was use my ray tool and I drew a line that hit this big spike and this spike, and it essentially just makes a line that acts as a resistance area. So you can see we are making some nice support here at the 130s. So essentially what this price action has to do is retest this line by May, and if we get in a volume buying that day, we could cause a pretty massive squeeze up to the 200 moving average, and then higher on to these other resistance points at 270 and 365. So next is OPHC. So one thing I want to mention is that none of the stocks that I am listing are ranked in any particular order. I was simply just looking through my trade ideas low float scanner and just going down one by one, and whichever one I liked, I added it to this list. So make sure that you hear through this whole list, because maybe the one at the very bottom is the best one for you. So next was OPHC. You can see OPHC definitely has a history of having a massive spike all the way up over almost hitting the high 13s, and this had the same type of breakout. You can see it was pretty dormant here in a $2 range, popped up, hit a high of 398, pulled back, it consolidated, and then had another massive green day, broke out and squeezed up even higher. So now looking at the recent price action, we have a pretty hard top here at $6. So if we can pull back, do some consolidation, make a higher low, and then break out through that, we could hit the high 6s. If we break through that, we could hit the 880s. Next up is BSPM. BSPM, kind of the same thing as DRIO. We've broken this downtrend. You see we had this previous high at just under $6 in January, and then we just use a ray tool and we connect these two tops, and you can see we have broken that downtrend, and now we're making higher lows. So now we can just watch and see how this is going to react once it hits $5, and you know, it could potentially break out if it has good news. Next was AQB. This is a recent mover in the past few days. Yesterday actually it made a high at 366. So if we can break over 366, I see no reason why it will not retest the high 4s and even $5. If it can break through $5, it'll test the 200 moving average at the 550s, and ultimately if it can break through that, it'll test the 8s and then $10. And then of course next, SIEB. This one's a tiny bit higher priced, but it does have history of moving very, very fast. So this has a previous history back in December of hitting a high of $21.71, I believe it is, just around there. And right now we do have a nice pattern forming. So we have a solid bottom here at the $7.50 range. In February we had a high that hit $10.25. Then in early March we had another run that topped out at $9.62. So now we can do two things. One, we could use the horizontal trend lines at $10.25 and $9.62, and we can also use a ray tool and we combine those 2 points, and once it breaks that trend line, that would be a good entry point, anticipating a move up towards $9.65 and breaking out higher. So definitely watch SIEB, because this has a big history of running very massively. And then ZSAN, this has a nice pattern forming in the near term. This is a higher priced play, but it does have history of going a lot higher. And you can see, like, if we look at like RKDA, this ran to, you know, the 70s as well. So don't rule it out. Anything is possible in this market. So ZSAN, it's making a nice U shape here. So essentially what we want it to do is to break over this double top we have at $25.80. If it can do that, it should squeeze a lot higher. Now what you can do, if you don't want to wait until then, you could use the break over the high we had this afternoon at $21.45. Use that as your entry. Use your risk properly, of course, and anticipate the move higher. But ultimately, what I would recommend is waiting until that big, nice multi-month breakout there at $25.80. And then the LRRX. This one has a nice chart as well. So essentially what we want on this play is a breakout over 390. I would say use the nice round number just above it as your breakout level. You buy that breakout, and then the next resistance is $4.72, and it does have history of hitting just under $7. So this is a very nice play as well. It's making higher lows and it's just squeezing down and consolidating, and if it gets volume and hype behind it, it can definitely squeeze up. Now, by the way, all of these plays have a float of less than 10 million shares. Most of these are just around 2 to 3 million, and some are even under 1 million shares. Then last but not least, now this one is not under 10 million shares. This is a 13 million share float, so that's why it moves a tiny bit slower, but it did have some nice volume in the past 2-3 days, and it has potential to squeeze higher. So I would say the ideal buy point on SEED would be the rebreak over this high of day we had on the 14th at $1.36, just because we tried to do it this afternoon, but it just pulled all the way back. So I would be a bit more cautious on this play just because of how big the top wick is. That does show signs of weakness, so just be cautious on that. So those are all the ones I'm going to review in this video. Like I said, there are a bunch more on this list that I did not review. The ones that I reviewed have the asterisk on them. So definitely pause this video, write these down, and do your own technical analysis on them and see if they're a good place for you. What I always recommend all of my students to do is, we don't trade on the weekends. The penny stock market is closed on the weekends, so use that time and prepare for upcoming plays. There's no reason why you can't spend an hour per day and just look at the previous runners, look at the low floats, and see which ones have a nice chart pattern, because the more prepared you are, the bigger edge you have on the market. And then let's say next Tuesday I'm looking at my Trade Ideas low float scanner, and it says that ZSAN is breaking out. Because I did my education over the weekend and I prepared, I already know what ZSAN looks like, and I already know that it's a buy because of the breakout. If I didn't know about ZSAN before that, I would have to look back at the daily chart and just waste extra precious minutes and even seconds, which are very valuable when you're trading real time. So I highly recommend take your weekends and study up and educate yourself. Join my mentorship program because you can get it right now for 25% off, and you can use this weekend, get prepared, and then start paper trading next week. I never recommend any new trader to jump right into the market with real money, because that is a gambling game. You need to develop a solid foundation of learning and trading. So that's exactly what I teach all of my students. So if you're interested in that, link is down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any other plays you would recommend, please, 1, they have to be low priced, 2, they have to be low floats, and 3, past history of running. But if you have any other plays that match these type of chart patterns, please leave them down below. I'd love to see what you guys are watching, and I'd love to add and build onto my own watch list. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, leave a subscription, and leave a comment down below for a chance to win $25. And I'll see you guys in the next video.